Hi everybody, my name is Sonia.MPG, and today my talk would be on the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war. As we all may know, the 9/11 terrorist attack on the Twin Towers was a devastating event for the United States. This attack caused ex-President George W. Bush to declare war on Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, which soon after the setup for military bases began in Afghanistan, and thus leading the United States to almost a decade of long, bloody shed war. Being in Afghanistan and in Iraq has not only in ways it hasn't been positive for the U.S. The bloodshed that is currently happening while we're sitting in our own very own seats in this classroom is still going on, which brings me to my main claim today. The continuation of the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war are negatively affecting the balance of the United States and the military, causing no progress against the Taliban. Three of my supporting claims are, the first one is the continuation of the wars are costing our already hurt economy and taking from more positive attributes. My second is that the continuation of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq negatively affect the balance of our American soldiers. And lastly is the Obama administration counterinsurgency plan to take on the Taliban has not improved the overall winning of the war on terrorism. Okay, which brings back to my first claim, that the continuation of the wars are costing us our already hurt economy and taking away from the positive attributes. According to Amy Velasco, a specialist in the U.S. defense policy and budget, the U.S. has spent over $1.1 trillion on the war on terrorism and until already $14 trillion national debt. Also, the Congressional Research Service report shows that the amount spent on the Afghanistan and Iraq war is $3.6 billion per month, and the numbers are still rising today. The negative, and for my third one, is the negative balance of these numbers greatly affect our taxes to rise, our schools to continue budget cuts, and our health insurance to rise. Going to my second claim is that the continuation of the Afghanistan war and Iraq negatively affects the balance of our American soldiers. According to Jay Uller, psychologist and administrator, the long-term mental health that 40% of our soldiers report after coming back from the wars are post-traumatic stress, which symptoms are anxiety, depression. I have a first-hand example of this. My boyfriend came back from last year from Iraq, and after laying down for a couple hours, I woke up with him sitting in the corner, crying and sweating from anxiety, and he was just talking about war constantly. It was really different. But going back to the Washington Post, as the deaths of American soldiers, not only do we have to worry about our soldiers coming back to mental illness, but let's not forget the 5,800 that so far have lost their lives overseas, that the war hasn't seemed to be ending anytime soon. Going to my third claim, the Obama administration counterinsurgency plan to take on the Taliban has not improved overall winning of the war on terrorism. Our very own Vice President Joe Biden says we should abandon the counterinsurgency and focus on only killing the Al-Qaeda terrorists. And also General David Petraeus says most people in and around policy-making circles agree that the U.S. and NATO missions in Afghanistan should transition away from counterinsurgency and towards a strategy combining counter-terror activities with a trained and equipped mission. Now, my conclusion is that that's my major claim. In conclusion, the Afghanistan and Iraq war negatively affects the balance of the United States and military costing no progress against the Taliban, which lastly, it affects our economy and takes away from positive attributes. It negatively affects our soldiers. And lastly, the counterinsurgency plan to take on the Taliban has improved overall at all. So, thank you.
All right, well, the opening proposition is a little complicated. It's got multi-part claims to it, and I'm not exactly sure what the inference is that you're making. It sounds like there's a lot of descriptive information, and in fact, a lot of the argument follows along with description. You did do a good job labeling the secondary points before you got to them, and internally you also did a good job signposting those points as you got to them. So it's well organized, but those secondary points need to be making inferences a little bit more, and they simply describe certain things that are true. There's no doubt that we've spent money. There's no doubt that people are suffering, and there's not really much doubt, well, there might be some doubt about whether or not it's efficacious. That's the one place where I think that there is an inference that's going on, and there's a criticism of the Obama strategy of insurgency from Petraeus and from Biden, but I'm not exactly sure if that's not the strategy, if the Petraeus strategy, for instance, is not the one that Obama adopted, since he made Petraeus the Supreme Commander in Afghanistan to take care of those issues. And so, you need to show us that it is inefficient, and that the Taliban, for instance, is gaining power, or that we are not able to deploy our resources appropriately, or that the Taliban's got more widespread support as a consequence of the strategies that we're pursuing. We didn't really get anything like that on the third point. On the first and second points, the cost issues, you got factual data on that point. On the first point, though, even though you listed all the factual data, I didn't hear any information that linked it to the economic issues, just the cost. And obviously cost is important, and there's likely to be an impact, but if you were talking about the reasons why the economy is in bad shape, you need to be able to connect it a lot more directly to the costs that are going on that. On the second point, like I said, I think there's not much dispute that people who have served often have traumatic issues that they have to deal with, especially combat veterans. And so it's descriptive in nature. How permanent is it? How long is it? Is it going to deplete the ability of the fighting force to succeed? Would it be different if we were involved in some other kind of war? How do we measure this against whatever potential benefit there is? I'm not sure. It's information that's useful. But I'm not sure there's any dispute about the causality on it. Being in war is likely to produce those kinds of effects. I don't know that anybody says that they don't. Sometimes I guess people might minimize it. Maybe there'd be some argument on that. I don't know. And like I said, the third point I think is the place where you make the closest to an inference, but it's also the one with the least amount of information that's directly applicable to that particular point. All right. Thank you.